Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another show of the Level Up Hour. I am Chris Short, Principal Technical Marketing Manager and Executive Producer of this wonderful thing we call OpenShift TV. I'm joined today by the illustrious Langdon White, who is the champion of the Level Up Hour, I will say. Langdon, please introduce yourselves. Oh no, we are looking at the wrong Zoom window. Dagnabbit.
Oh, look at that. Well, at least we know what show it is.
Yeah, true. Very true. Thank you, Zoom scene, for not doing the right thing. I always appreciate it.
Zoom. Well, I'll take this opportunity to point off my brand new scarf that just came in the mail from our DevConf. Oh, you can't even see it. Oh, well,
Now,
sadly.
trust me, your scarf is there. Yes.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
So, but it was, yeah, I don't know what I was thinking.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So I was going to say, I was going to make a joke. This is the Level Up Hour where we get started because we get logged out of Google.
Exactly. It's part of the opening.
Right. Like literally Langdon was like pulling up the slides and he's like, wait, my Google account just logged out. It was just here. It's like, oh my God, of course.
Yes. Of course, it worked fine when I, tested things.
Right. Like before the show. And then you went off to get water or whatever, and you come back and it doesn't work. And then, of course, we're streaming the freaking like Zoom schedule, not the actual Zoom meeting. Great. So off to a wonderful start here. So what are we talking about today, Langdon?
We've had worse starts, to be clear. Well, we should. Well, I will take this opportunity to point out the DevConf DevConf US scarf that was our speaker gift. If you want to get one, you should definitely apply to speak at the next one. And then we are wearing matching T-shirts today because we just got them in the mail with the nice Level Up Hour logo and T-shirt. And hopefully we'll have them available for lots of other people.
Yeah.
JP Dade also got the scarf. Was that for winning trivia or was that for speaking? I can't remember which.
Like it'll be interesting to see.
So
Narenda's in the house, by the way. He's showing us out real quick.
So what are we talking about today? Let's see. So the first thing we should do is probably introduce the show a little bit more than we normally do. However, did Google like build a feature or something? I can't seem to like get the present window to just show on its own.
What? Oh no, did Google change something overnight?
I'm afraid they might have. So
send me a link real quick.
Well, I'll try sharing it and
see what happens.
Well,
okay, that works.
Yeah,
I can always find the slides too, so I'll look for them real quick.
Yeah, I just don't know what's going on. All right, so let's see. We'll try sharing the screen, but that doesn't. I honestly don't have any idea how you're supposed to use it now.
Oh, sweet. Okay, I've got
well, you hit the big present button, and it doesn't pop into a new window. It just takes over the screen.
That is the default behavior on anything but Linux.
Oh, it is?
Yes. Yeah, so if I hit present, it actually like gives you a new desktop, right? Like it's crazy. Yeah, it's I can do it.
Oh wait, maybe I got it with presenter view, it looks like. All right, let's try that. All right, so technology.
Yeah.
Maybe we should work in software.
It's almost like the software that we make is very tuned to the human person, and sometimes that might not be the case for other things, right?
Like, right. Yeah. You don't always know best, Google. All right, so this is the Level Up Hour, and the idea behind this show is we talk about why containers are useful in kind of everyday situations, not to mention, kind of like most people focus on containers in kind of a development, pure development deployment, works on my machine kind of scenario. Mm-hmm. Here we talk a little bit about why containers are useful kind of just all the time. I've been using containers now pretty much exclusively for many years now, and I hate that, to actually install anything locally. It's kind of weird.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we talk about today. We'll get to that in a second. And Narendra brought up what I expected was to talk about Centos.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we
Did
don't
you
want to
carve
make a
out
whole lot of
time for
changes.
that?
Yeah, I know,
Or
I know. Well, I'll tell you, yesterday I was complaining to some friends about how like yesterday I like was just slammed trying to get ready for the content for this show,
Mm.
and then we decided to drop the Centos announcement. And thank you, JP Dade. I am concerned about Google hunting me as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so but they put out the CentOS announcement, and I just was like, oh my goodness. So yeah, so CentOS or CentOS, depending on how you like to say it, is kind of being discontinued in the way that you know, to be replaced with CentOS Stream. There's a nice fact that maybe we can
Yeah,
find
I got it.
quickly.
I got
Okay.
it.
So for me, I think, I think in many use cases, first of all, the Red Hat Enterprise Linux developer subscription is actually more than sufficient for many of the use cases that people put CentOS to, especially like, personal
Mm-hmm.
home server kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, CentOS Stream is probably a good way to get community involvement in kind of the development and creation of RHEL. So one of the things that you can't find out very well, except like kind of reading blog posts or stuff, it's very hard to get at source code for what is going to be in the next minor version of RHEL. So in theory, right, that the next major version is going to come from Fedora,
Mm-hmm.
and that the bulk of the code is going to come from Fedora,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't necessarily know what's actually going to land in, I think we're at RHEL 8.3 right now, what's actually going to land in 8.4.
Right.
So the idea of CentOS Stream is that in public, we can kind of show the machinations that are involved in kind of taking content from Fedora or maybe even other upstreams,
Mm-hmm.
bringing that
A lot of
together.
times it's other upstreams. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And hardening that, or, kind of enterprising that, I'll just make that word up,
Yeah. Enterprising.
into a minor release. And then, obviously it'll be a little bit different when there's two majors kind of in the middle, right? So when RHEL 9 or whatever they end up naming it, starts to land in the public space, obviously it'll be a little different and some of the details will change. I don't even know if they've been fully worked out yet. But CentOS Stream, the idea of it is that we can build a community around the next minor version of RHEL.
Right.
So that's kind of in a nutshell what's going on. There is a big fact. There's actually a great article by Jim Perrin, the former lead of the.
Grab that real quick.
You got that one?
Yeah.
The former lead of the CentOS project. And by former, I really mean like he was the lead before Red Hat acquired CentOS. He's still been heavily involved in it for many years. So yeah, so there's a lot going on. If you really want some popcorn, sit around, check out
go
Twitter.
look at my Twitter replies and mentions.
Right.
Yeah.
Or look at IRC CentOS Devel.
That too.
It's another fun one.
I turned IRC off yesterday.
Excuse me. So, but back to the regularly scheduled programming.
Can I just say?
Yeah, sorry.
Can I just say one thing about the CentOS thing, right? Like,
yeah,
it's one thing for a company to make a decision. It's another thing to ask somebody that works in the company for their opinion. It's something completely different when you castigate the person that works at that company that had no involvement in the opinion or the change or whatever happened.
Yes.
Right? Like, decorum is required if you want to interact with me as a stranger on the internet. Sorry, I'm just going to put that out there now.
Yeah,
right?
even the CentOS developers, right? I mean, like Red Hat is not by any stretch of the imagination a uniform organization as far as its opinion or thought.
No.
As is true for most companies, some hide it better than others. I won't name any names.
I got a big one, but okay.
Yeah, I got a few. But
not big in size, but like big in news lately.
Oh yeah. So there are many people who are involved in the CentOS project who are disconcerted, might be the right word. I'm not sure if unhappy is the right word. There's probably some who are actually unhappy as well about these decisions, and how it was handled or how it was released or the details around it or whatever. We're not, we're all just humans, right? We're all
Right.
just, bumbling along, trying to do what we think is best for the community, for our organization, for software at large, and we're trying to do that, and taking the position that our intent is good is often better than taking the position that our intent is bad. Um, and there's some, just to tweak the software, right? I mean, there's been some discord around, this decision, and people have been taking it out on people who are really not involved in the decision,
Involved in the decision at all. Yes,
right?
correct.
And even if you're taking it out on the people who are involved in the decision, that doesn't mean you can't walk into the decision with assuming positive intent.
Yeah, there's nothing more effective at getting your way than telling them "f you" and what you did was bad, right? Like that's not a good way to start a conversation, right?
Right.
Like,
And it's a community, right? So
yeah,
you're free to go and make your own thing, or if you don't think CentOS Stream the way it's designed is sufficient, or the right answer for what you need, you can always fork it. You can always contribute to it by saying,
hmm
hey, this is the kind of scenario I need, and here's some docs or code. Like, it doesn't have to be just code. That was another complaint I saw yesterday, that the people who don't do code don't get any contribution. Well, that's not true. If you document how you can make CentOS Stream more like old CentOS, or you could document, like, there's lots of different things that can be contributions that are not necessarily code, that can solve your perceived problem or scratch your itch, that that may need to that you can do. So I don't know. That was kind of a long rant. Is that
yeah, and that's all that I think we need to say about it. To be honest with you,
yeah?
we shouldn't spend the show talking about CentOS changes. This is about leveling you up and getting you comfortable with containers, which can run on any version of CentOS
Right.
Stream or
And
8.
sort of kind of Windows, and sort of kind of any kind of
Yeah,
Linux, and
yeah. Any VM, that's based on Linux will work just fine.
right,
Just
right.
like, yeah.
So yeah, but so you can find us on Twitter. I'm at Langdon with a one, and Chris is at Chris Short.
hmm
And you can also chat with us on our Discord. We're usually pretty responsive. Actually, we both responded to somebody about the developer subs, I think, this morning.
I think it was Narindev, wasn't it?
No, I don't, was it? I thought it was somebody else.
No,
But
he was
maybe I misread it.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
it,
Narindev, I
I
think. Yeah.
I'm yeah, not very far into the coffee, so
No,
just
not me either.
I blame that. Um, so uh, so just Joe Fuzz waves the WSL2 flag. Um,
Yeah. You
we've
kidding?
heard reports of a number of people being very successfully running containers, even Kubernetes or variants of Kubernetes on WSL.
hmm
So if you really want to cause yourself some pain, um, definitely try that up. Um, Yeah, so JP Dade says, every time he screws up his cluster, he tries to contribute bug reports and a fix,
Yeah,
to bring back to the community. Yeah, I mean, that's what we do on this show, right? We've filed a number of bugs
we have. Yeah.
for issues, and seen some of them get fixed and some of them get laughed at, which is, my preferred bug report if I can manage it. So moving on today. Oh, so one of the things I've been kind of remiss on is to kind of point out the red.hat.level up hour link.
hmm
And the reason I want to point it out is both because this show we're kind of streaming on some new channels, and so I want to bring it up. But in particular, and I don't think I've mentioned this in a while, Red Hat kind of has a program around this show, like
hmm
in the business sense of program.
Like program enough to get T-shirts, right?
Yeah, with T-shirts no less.
Right. Yeah.
So there are ways to. So basically, we're offering some free ways to get to OpenShift clusters, as well as to get to taking some of the classes around OpenShift administration, and basically to help you actually kind of formally level up. So you might be learning some of the stuff that we talk about here, but then if you want to be able to prove that to your friends and colleagues, you can always get certifications, have something to put on your LinkedIn page. one of these days we'll get the sweet internet points as badges that you can put on your LinkedIn page. That's what that's my goal for the, I don't know, maybe 2021. So
there is changes that will occur in 2021, all for the better, hopefully.
Yes, hopefully. All right, so I will point out, so we're doing Nextcloud today. I also want to provide a teaser for next week, where we're going to have Matt Myceni on, who is known on Twitter as Cleverbeard, where we're going to talk about
yes.
My stepfather is actually like a formal scientist. He's an organic chemist who then got tired of his PhD not being good enough, so he went and got an MD, so now he's a MD PhD, primarily working in NMR spectroscopy, which is the real word for MRI. But nobody likes to say nuclear, so they call it magnetic resonance imaging.
Yeah, no one likes the word nuclear anymore.
So long story short, it's a problem. It's been a problem for him. I actually did some research with him when I was in college, doing reproducibility of your data or of your science is a huge problem, because what you want is peer review, right? So I need to be able to hand my data or my science or whatever you want to call it to Chris and say, here, test this for me, make sure it's true. Much like we do in in software, except we don't care if it fails in software. But in science, what we want to do is hand something off and let somebody else reproduce it to prove that the outcome that we got is real.
Right.
So we're going to be talking about how do you do that with containers and data science next time, which I think it'll be a lot of fun. I did not finish the show notes because I was working with getting the Nextcloud stuff up and running. I should have those hopefully by the end of the day tomorrow for last episode. I'm sad. Usually I'm pretty good about getting them on time.
No reason to be sad.
Well, I don't want to make it a habit.
That's fine.
So
fair enough.
All right, JP Dade, everybody needs badges. Everyone loves badges. I just have to make a comment on the comment. All right, so getting into the show itself, let's see if we can rework some of these windows. I'm not going to close that one because I had so much trouble getting it working.
Yeah, don't close the one that you had to open.
Right. Let me move this window over here. And
I agree with Narindev that NMR rocks. I was having a discussion on Twitter earlier about like nuclear medicine and how one time I did something bad in the military as I was injected with radioisotopes for a body scan. And
weird.
Yeah, they were trying to figure out what was wrong with my shoulder at the time. And that this radioisotope would highlight any inconsistencies in the bone structure itself, but it's injected and has to work through your system for like 4 hours. So it's like, well, what do I go do? Not thinking, this was in Tampa at the time, the closest place for me to hang out was back at my unit.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't even think about like, oh, the main entrance to the MacDill Air Force Base that I was going to drive through is right next to CENTCOM headquarters, where they have all the radio magnetometer, whatever thingies they're called, right? To make sure that no dirty bomb is approaching.
Oh, right.
Here comes a dirty bomb on an F-150, right? So that was a fun story to talk about on Twitter. So if you want to go back and look at those replies, this gentleman actually has that problem constantly. And that's a very weird phenomenon. And it's almost like, that's cool, but unusual. Yeah.
Well, I still remember my stepfather telling me in high school, it was kind of one of those, growing up talks or whatever, and him saying, hey, make sure if you ever decide to get a tattoo, don't get one that completes a circuit. So in other words, a lot of people get like a band or something around their arm or something. Make sure there's a gap at the end. And the reason is because if you ever need an MRI, it will create a circuit.
Yes, I have that problem. So it's not so much a problem anymore as the tattoo has aged. But when I was much younger and the tattoo was new, the first MRI I ever got was like this constant sound. It was like, what is that? It feels
Yeah.
weird.
Right. Yeah, I always thought that was it was at the time. I remember being like, "What are you even talking about?"
Right.
And then and then I kind of thought about it a little bit more or whatever, and finally was like, "Oh yeah, that's some good advice."
Target.
Actually.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
All right, where did my
Weird science
window go? Oh, here it is.
Bring up that terminal.
All right.
There we go.
So today, what we're talking about, right? Is
I don't. Anyways, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So what we're talking about today is we've been screwing around with containerizing Nextcloud, and while we have a relatively rudimentary version, thanks to what did we decide it was NL Hackem, we had some nice progress on the containerized version of it. But what we want to do is move that to OpenShift. And what I wanted to kind of go through today was highlighting some of the changes we need to make that happen in OpenShift. So we're going to kind of do a blend of doing that in, command line, which the thing about OpenShift and Kubernetes by extension, you can do basically everything on the command line, but you have to do a ridiculous amount of YAML. And so because I have a high propensity of failure with YAML, I decided to do a bunch of stuff with console or with the web console as well. So yeah, moving on. So we're going to start pretty easily in that we're going to just kind of create a new project to do this work. And please, as usual, ask questions as we go.
Yes, I need to drop that short code real quick. Feel free to ask any container-related question. We are here for you.
Right. This is one of the weirdest things for me is the new app and new project are like a different syntactically than everything else you create in OpenShift because you usually use the create command.
Yes.
So I invariably my fingers will type OC create project name almost every single time. And I really have to think about it to not screw it up. But so I have, so just by way of a little bit of context. So I'm running, as we've talked about in the show in the past, I'm running CRC, which is Code Ready Containers, which is a way for you to run your OpenShift on your laptop. I actually have this running on a server in my basement and basically doing some redirections so that I can get to it from kind of anywhere in my house.
Some SSH tunnels or?
No, actually, I'm using a HA proxy. So what I do is I actually have a VM that's running CRC, which is also a VM. So you need to make sure that nested KVM is turned on.
There's a font color change request.
Oh, which
I think maybe it's the
of the terminal.
Of the terminal, yes.
Yeah. We go through this all the time.
I think it's very light.
Try to remember how to do it. So let's see. That's telling me it's black, right?
That's weird. It is not coming through black. That is for sure.
Let's see if I can get some scrolling to work here. Let's just do white on, or not. I want to do black on,
not that.
The other way around. Hopefully that's better.
It looks the same.
It looks the same?
But yeah. Okay. It looks good. It's fine.
All right. Moving on. All right. So actually, I have, there's actually a good article on the internet, which maybe I'll try to find during the show, but about doing this. But basically, I have an HA proxy set up on the VM, which does proxying for the VM that's running CRC. And then on my local host, I'm using DNS mask to map the name to that machine, which is basically doing the HA proxy. So apparently the font change helps. So that's good. I'm not sure if Fish Shell will change the colors though, and it would just slow me down even more because I'm so used to Bash. All right, so
it was actually I used Fish Shell for a long time. It was actually very easy to pick up coming.
Oh
from
yeah.
Bash. So yeah,
I switched to ZSH. It's because I spent so long as a consultant. I have a very hard time convincing myself to use anything that doesn't get shipped essentially out of the box.
Right.
Because when I was in consulting, you go to a new client, you go to a new customer, you go and you have
Try to install anything, you're game over. Yeah.
and you're always in trouble. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, all right.
Yeah.
So
it's always nice when they tell you don't install anything, and you do it, and then you're in trouble. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is create a new project, and hopefully I did it correctly, and it looks like I did, which is always winning. Like I said, I have a mental block there. So here is one of the first problems I ran into. So I am going to show you, I have, so the images we've been using, right, are primarily coming from the Red Hat Container Catalog. And the Red Hat Container Catalog, for at least some of its content, I'm not sure if it's all or not, but for some of its content, you need to log in to get to it. And so when we do that on localhost, which we do all the time, we just say podman login, and it's registry.redhat.io, I think. And you type in your username and password. I'm not going to bother right now to log in. So then whenever I do a Podman poll, I'll get the correct base images that I want to deploy from. However, I'm going to be doing all of this from inside OpenShift, so that's not going to work. So what I need to do is I need to give my project access to that registry. And the way I do that, the easiest way without showing off my passwords, is to essentially add this, basically create what's called a secret in OpenShift. Uh, but the way I'm going to do this is kind of, we were talking about, you can kind of do everything on the command line. So if you notice, I do an OC create, and then I pass -F, which means use this file. Did I not change projects?
Oh, well,
maybe it's,
that command is kind of weird sometimes.
Yeah, maybe
like
it's
sometimes
somehow...
I usually forget to do it. That's
Oh
the biggest
no,
thing.
it's because I copied and pasted and it's wrong.
Oh, well, that'll do it.
Okay, so I passed the namespace flag, which meant try to put it into my test one, which is where I'd been kind of working this out. So if I don't pass the namespace flag, then it will go into the namespace I'm in, which is what I actually intended. So now that secret is there, and if we go over to our nice UI here, we can see that once it's loaded, we can see that now there's a secret here, and it will, I think it'll hide the password. Yeah, so it hides the passwords. But basically that will let me now pull things from the Red Hat Container Registry.
So JP Date asked, so do you base 64 the file so that it's like just a string, basically, or?
How did I end up doing it? Let's see. I can't remember now. I was actually, all I basically did was follow the directions on the old docs, which was, that's what it was. Oh, actually, I can show you. It's pretty easy, I think. Let me just see if I can find the window here for a second.
To be clear, Narindev, he said garbled, not encrypted.
That's true. Obfuscated, not actual.
Yeah, obfuscated. Obfuscation is not security.
Right. So if you go here, and so I'm using PHP, I think it's -74. Yeah, this is another thing I'm trying to figure out. This happens inside OpenShift too, is like, there's two of these. They look exactly alike from this panel, right? But they're different, but you have to like dig into it to find out how they're different, which I find incredibly annoying. And if you look at, let's go back over here. I was messing with Operator Hub, which is cool, and I really like the concept when it loads a little faster. But let's go back here for 2 seconds so that I can show you how to do this. What's really nice about each of these pages is not only does it tell you like what it is and then how to use it, which is all this stuff down here, but then it'll actually show you the Docker file. And we went through the packages one time for one of the things we were talking about, so we could see what was already included, all that stuff. So you get all that cool information. But then there's also this get this image. And so basically I just follow these directions right here, which is how to get that YAML file. So it's basically this, and getting the poll secret. And to get the poll secret, you have to create a registry service account, and then you go and get the poll secret. And it's pretty straightforward. And it's relatively generic. So yeah, so it worked out pretty well for me. But this is just kind of going back to my other point. Was it this one? There was something. Oh yeah. So again, see if I put in Postgres. So yeah, there's this one, which is different from the two from Crunchy. And so I get this marketplace community and then no flag. And it's kind of like, I really wish it, and maybe I'm going to talk to the developers for this, but it'd be nice to have a little bit more information on these little panels about how they're different. This is actually not the worst one. I've seen other ones where there's basically just no difference between the panels, which I find confusing because I'm not very bright. So going back to where we were, sorry.
I'm answering questions in chat real quick.
Oh,
Unless
cool.
you want to ask it on air, let's just ask it on air.
Sure.
Wouldn't the RHEL 8 version have a whole bunch of more packages essentially than the summed down UBI image? UBI is also attributable, whereas the RHEL 8 version is not.
I actually searched for the wrong one. I think I'm using the UBI 8.1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not RHEL. Okay, got it. That makes sense.
Yeah. So I'm almost positive it's pulling the other one. So let's see. Wait, am I in the right place? Yeah. Yeah. So it's actually the UBI 8, and that's actually going to get to a point that another challenge I ran into that I wanted to mention. So okay. Now we have our project, and we have our like pull secret essentially, so that we can get stuff from a locked registry. And Chris had to look the world up, or is that
word? Sorry, I had to look that word up. I can't even say it. It's some enanatomiers. I don't even know. But basically, yeah, it's a mirror image essentially. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good word. It's like idempotent. I like saying the word idempotent.
Yeah, idempotent is kind of probably more what he was going for. But yeah.
Well, maybe. All right. So for this project, we're going to need a database as well as our like PHP and Apache. And so I'm just going to kind of show you in the console how to get our database. We are not going to use an operator for this, mostly because I wanted to use Maria. And so going
but there
back,
is a Maria operator. Yeah.
There wasn't one available. I don't know why. I thought there was too.
I thought there was.
Yeah, it's something we'll have to investigate as well.
So cluster.
Yeah, I was using this one. And so what I need to do is grab, just to kind of show you how I did it. I thought there was a nice like whole thing. Oh, here it is. So it doesn't seem to find it correctly if I only use the RHEL 8 MariaDB-103 part.
Okay.
So on its lookup, but one of the nice things I like about it is that it validates it, that it came through. And so it does tell you, hey, I actually found it. This I found amusing too, is that we can also set the icon so that it looks pretty. And there's a bunch of open source icons in there. And so let's just call this Nextcloud DB. Then if we decide that we don't want to use Maria and we want to do something else later, we can change a little bit less. And then I don't think this matters as much, but let's do the same thing. And hopefully it's not going to get too angry with us for the mapping the same. And one thing with our database is we don't want it to be publicly accessible, right? We only want our web server to be able to access it. So we don't want to create a route to the application itself. So, and then if you notice, I switched from the default deployment, which will kind of immediately like push it out, and just do the deployment config, because we would like it to have persistent storage.
Yes.
So there's
in
probably other
theory.
ways. Sorry.
In theory, we would like
In
it to
theory,
have.
yeah. The first time I did it, and I was like, "Oh, well, I can keep my test one around in case I run into problems on the show, but I'm going to shut it down so I can get the resources back, right?" And then I spun it back up, and I was like, "Oh, persistent database would make this work a little better."
So I did find a MariaDB operator in OperatorHub.io. It's a community contribution version.
So
That's
I
why
wonder if my
we were
OpenShift is
confused.
set up to be not consuming community. Is kind of what I was wondering.
Support, I think, is like the biggest thing, right? Like it has to be
Yeah.
supportable things if it's
No, but I wonder if
displayed.
there's like some flag set somewhere that says ignore community edition
Oh, I have no
stuff
idea.
in
I
my
don't think so.
console that I haven't figured
Let's
out.
see. I just think maybe it's just not included.
Right.
No, there's a
Yeah.
community set. Let's see here.
Oh, Chris is kind of back, but with no
I'm
sound.
kind of back. Yes.
Oh,
Apologies, folks. My entire house just took a hit of some sort. Like a phone pole got hit, maybe someplace. That was very unusual. My apologies. Nothing had power for quite a bit. Sorry.
you lost power, not just
I
internet.
lost power and internet. Yeah, like
Fun.
so, like phone pole hit kind of thing is what I'm thinking. That unpleasant
Yes.
kind
Yes.
of event. So here we are. Apologies for the technical difficulties, and as usual, I have overrun time baked in.
Yeah. Right. Right. Exactly. I shared a joke, so so everything's okay.
Mm,
And all right, so back to where we were, in theory. So I had just added the MariaDB deployment config, and then I went to, actually, I'll just do it again because it's not like it's a big deal. And it's angry with me because it doesn't have any storage and any passwords. So I'm going to create a new storage claim. And as I mentioned, we did a whole episode about this. Be nice if I had like a list of all the episodes like next to me, and then I could say, "Hey, go watch this episode," and that'll be all about this. Maybe next time. All right, so
playlist.
I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I have a tendency to like label the first part of the thing with the thing type, which, because Kubernetes knows what the thing types are, is kind of pointless, but I do it anyway, so bear with me. So I'm gonna say Nextcloud DB data, and then I'm gonna jump back over here because I need to know where to put the persistent storage, which, if anybody's used MySQL, you probably know this already, or Maria for that matter. But just for, this is how you would do it, right? And we're going to say, hey, let's call it, 5 gigs. Actually, let's make it 2 gigs. And I give it a path for where it's going to store it. And then you can actually do a subpath within that, which sorry, the subpath is within the persistence, the volume, not in the container. So, but there you go. And so I'm going to save that, which is going to attach it to that deployment, or so to this Nextcloud DB thing, right? But then, and what I usually do is I do this first so that I get less errors, but I forgot. So we are going to create a secret, and we're going to call this something brilliant like MySQL creds. And these are going to be some amazing credentials. But again, we go back here to find out, okay, these are the required ones. There's all this optional stuff that we could do, but we're not going to do those right now. So we're just going to kind of cut and paste or put these in here. If I can find the text box to type in, and spell it correctly. And then just kind of keep adding them until we have them all configured. And we're going to say Nextcloud secret, because that's leet. Please tell me y'all know what leet is. If you don't, please ask in the chat.
Yeah, please ask in the chat if you don't.
And
Subpath is like having to say the cluster nodes file system.
No, so the subpath is so the volume mount that you get is just basically, for lack of a better term, block storage. It's not actual block storage, but like a block of storage. In that storage, you can say, okay, I'm going to make a data directory. I'm going to make a chickens directory. I'm going to make a cows directory. And that's what that path is for. So you can kind of have one volume that has all your different kinds of content. I don't know if there's a recommendation, but I have never seen anybody use storage that way. They almost always go and get separate volumes for each of the pieces of content.
Is the subpath a new feature in 4.6?
I don't know. I'm primarily familiar with 4.5 and 4.6. I'm not real familiar with older versions.
I forget when things arrive in versions.
Yeah.
Let's see. I mean, it's going to be a upstream thing.
Oops.
Right?
I cannot find these text boxes because of that gray text. I'm just going to call the database name MySQL, or sorry, Nextcloud. And then I'm not going to use the root password because we don't need it. Okay, so now I have this set of creds, and I can add the secret to a workload, and we are going to just attach it to the Nextcloud DB. We're not going to modify anything about its prefix. So like we could put, like if we wanted to, maybe we had multiple databases or something, we could put different, we could put them in different, like with different prefixes or whatever, so they wouldn't collide. Okay, so now I gave it some passwords, and every time I make one of these changes, if you notice, it's actually redeploying the component each time. And so theoretically, look at that, it's all blue now because I actually gave it the things that it requires. And oddly enough, it likes it when you give the things it requires. All right, so now we have a database, and let me look at that. In my notes, it even says do database creds first. But did I? No. So yeah.
Why would you follow
that.
your notes, Professor?
Right. Okay, so now we are going to. Did I not actually put this one in my notes? So this is a long one. So let me just see if I have a better place to not necessarily copy and paste this from, but know what the flag is. Okay, so now we're going to use this command that says new app, except okay, whoop, that didn't work at all. So I'm going to say OC new app, and then I'm going to give the app an app. So this is where I find a little bit of the terminology confusing. Now Chris Short is laughing at me.
Narendra just dropped in chat. Professor got schooled.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Yep.
Heavens.
Yeah, with friends like these.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so I say new app. So this is one of the things I find a little confusing. So in a project, we have a set of applications which then come together to form the application. The more appropriate term, right, in a sense, would be something like the term service, except that word is a keyword in Kubernetes, meaning basically a front end for an application. So I find the terminology a little confusing, but suffice to say, you have a project that is made up of applications. Those applications come together to form the thing that you're trying to build, let's just say. And so I just give it a name. And so like the Nextcloud DB, this is just going to be called Nextcloud. Maybe it should be called Nextcloud Web. Then the next thing I give it is a strategy. So this is not required, but in this case it is, because what I wanted to do is I wanted to go into my Git repo and build the content from a Docker file. And one thing I couldn't find a flag for on the command line is how to give it a different file name. So I actually had to use the word Docker file rather than container file, which is what we've been using pretty consistently. So then I give it the repo that we want, and a branch, which is obviously optional. So the repo is the episodes, and then I meant to mention this more towards the beginning, but somebody in the last show, I think, asked if they could see the code and follow along, and you can go to that repo right there, and I'll even drop it in here. Switch to the S1E18 branch, and you can see the stuff I'm doing, if you're interested. So we give it the branch name. That's what this pound S118 is. And then, sorry, switching windows. And then we need to pass it. Of course, I just lost where I was. Oh, and then obviously this content isn't at the root. It's in a subdirectory. So we have to give it a context dir, it's called. And so inside S1E18, there's a directory called Nextcloud, and in there is where our actual Docker file is. So I pass all these flags so that it can basically find the Docker file content. And just by way of, well, this is going to take a second, so it'll be hard to show you, but we'll just give it a minute and come back to it. And okay, so one of the things I like by default, the application is not exposed. So we just it's just kind of creating it for us, right? And so obviously creating it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to run. It just means it's creating it. So that's cool. And if we look over here, hey, look, this new application has gotten created, and it's building a build. There was something else I was going to point out, but now I forget what it was. Oh, just to show you what OpenShift sees when it goes and pulls all that content, it's just this directory. So if you look, I'm just in this S1E18 Nextcloud directory that is on the S1E18 branch coming from the episodes repo. So that's all it sees. And the only thing that is a little bit unfortunate in this is there's not a lot of caching, so it takes a while to build. But I did give this machine a whole bunch of juice, so hopefully it won't take too long. One thing I did want to point out, though, from here is pay attention to this line, and then this line down here. The reason that I'm pointing those out is because I ran into a bunch of problems, because while it was telling me that it was getting PHP 7.4, it actually replaced it with straight UBI 8. And it did that because I didn't give it the creds file. And so it wasn't able to get to registry.redhat.io to actually get the container I wanted, or the base image I wanted. But it silently just went on its merry way, and then failed miserably because the base image I was getting wasn't the one I was expecting. So I spent a bunch of fun time debugging user ownership issues and things like that, which were not correct because I was getting the wrong base image. So that's another thing I'm planning to file with the maintainers to say, hey, this should be at least a warning. Like, you should at least get some pop-up or something that says, hey, I went to go do this thing, but the base image you requested was not available, so I replaced it with this base image. If they think it's good that it just continues on its merry way, and maybe it is, that's fine, but I should at least get some sort of warning that says, hey, you idiot, you didn't make it so I could get to the base image that you asked for, so I went and grabbed this one instead. So this is going to cook for a bit. However, what that means is maybe we should do level up points or internet points while we're waiting for it. Are there any questions we should answer?
So this one just came in off of this topic, but a few weeks ago you went through a vSphere install with the new static IP option for 4.6. Did you ever get that working?
I don't think that was on this show.
It wasn't on this show. I think that was the Andrew's show. No. Yes, it was Andrew's show. He did get it working. He will explain it next show.
Which is?
it will be in the new year, I think, or
Okay.
next week. I'm sorry. Yeah, next week, the 16th. If I'm reading the PTO calendar correctly. Yes, I think so.
I don't know what just happened.
What happened to you?
My whole CRC just crashed.
Oh God.
Yeah, well,
This show's going
wouldn't be
great.
a show. Yeah. I thought you said Tuesdays were your new Mondays.
God. 2020 is just my new Monday, man.
I honestly don't know what just happened. Checking for disk, because that's half the time my problem. All right, that seems fine. Here, we can even debug this together.
Hang on. Yeah.
All right. So first thing I do is always check disk, because 9 times out of 10, that's my problem.
That's your problem, yeah.
This is on a separate host, so let's just check the VM that it's, or the machine, like the bare metal that it's running on, and just check that disk, which I can't imagine it's a problem. Nope, we got 21 gigs there. We have a pretend 54 gigs here because it's a sparse file, but still it should be fine. So that does not seem to be the problem. We are going to check and see if what CRC reports as its status. And it thinks it's running. Let's see what happens if we try connecting directly. Okay. Okay, so at least it's not a routing problem, right? So I know I'm getting the same error from the local machine. Okay, so that's cool. So my inclination is to stop it and restart it. Let me just check one more thing.
Yeah, like, do you have some swap consumption going nuts or something?
No, so 4096 used of swap. There's actually, I think I gave this machine 32 gigs of RAM and like 8 cores, and then I gave the CRC inside it like 26 gigs of RAM or something.
Oh wow, okay.
And 6 cores, so it should be doing fine.
Okay.
So that's weird. So I think I'm gonna bail out and just say CRC stop, and restart it and cross my fingers that it's gonna work. In the meantime,
sweet internet points.
Yeah. Where is my window? Oh, here it is.
So for folks that are new, do you want to tell them?
Yeah, good call.
Yeah.
Before we reveal, so as a way to kind of encourage participation and encourage people coming to the show and that kind of stuff, we like to give out sweet internet points. And way back in the day, this like, I don't know if it was invented by Slashdot, but that's where I remember it from. But basically getting internet karma, which we try not to use that term anymore, because it does have a kind of a religious meaning. But
a little.
Yeah, a little bit for a lot of people. So we just talk about it points. So I think Reddit is kind of the most common place to get kind of internet points, or at least jokingly referred to as internet points. So the idea here is a little competition to kind of say, hey, who has the most internet points? And the way you get internet points is by attending the show and filling out the codes that I'm going to show you in a second.
The codes are generated with what?
My YubiKey.
Of course.
if you do have to use two-factor auth, and YubiKey supports it, I highly recommend them. I have the Nano, and it basically just sits in a USB slot, and I just tap it whenever I need the code. I even ran the fact that I use it by our security team, because I was like, hey, the physical hardware is there. And their response was, well, it still doesn't defeat the point of two-factor auth, because there's still the piece right, and the piece you own. So even if somebody boosted my laptop, which happened to me a couple of years ago when I was in the Czech Republic, it doesn't matter, because you still have the piece, so
Right.
it's totally fine to use it per our security team. Your security team may or may not be as enlightened, so take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But
To be clear, I have 3 of these things, right, that I use. One is actually compatible with my phone. One I use for certain accounts. The other I use for other accounts. So yeah, like this is a common security tool.
you have a YubiKey for your phone?
Yeah, I have a
Oh,
YubiKey that plugs into my iPhone. They have it's called I think it's the 5CI
I'll have
YubiKey.
to go check that out. That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
I use
it's got
FreeOTP,
yeah.
which was actually originally developed by a Red Hatter, who has been kind of maintaining it off and on, but I think has actually now been kind of taken over by the community. Which supports Google Auth, it supports RAuth, as well as a number of others. Um, so yeah. Sorry, I was laughing at Narendev's comment. But yeah, so what I do is so the YubiKey obviously generates a 6-digit code, so I use that to create the codes. I did in my little spreadsheet full of codes set a unique filter to make sure that in theory I could get the same code again, but to make sure that doesn't happen. So long story short, today we still have Netherlands Hackem at the top of
Mhm.
the pack with 2,100 points. Um, and oh, by the way, so if you want to catch up to the people who are at the top of the pack, you can go watch past episodes, get the codes from them in the show, and then fill them out. So there's no like time limit on doing them. You can also get points for filing issue requests of like show ideas. And then the reason that Netherlands Hackem pulled ahead actually is because they actually filed a PR with the containers for the Nextcloud version we did a couple of weeks ago. Actually, while we're talking, let me start this again, and hopefully that will do its thing. What? uh, all right, so it's telling me that libvirt-d is not running. So let's.
Well, that'll stop it for sure.
Yeah. All right, so let's restart that and see how it's doing. Well, that's further than I got last time, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Back to Sweet Internet points. Okay, so that seems to be cooking. Okay, so then we have our second 2 leaders, Noah Friction and Narendev. Narendev, who is here. I haven't seen Noah Friction today. And Joe Fuzz is also right up there, and then a few people who I think we haven't seen back in a while on the show. But so this is our leaderboard. If you want to get the Sweet Internet points for today, you can. Now I completely don't have the
You move
window with
something.
the
Yeah.
code because technology. Let's see.
There you go. No.
No, it's because of the stupid. Yeah, it's because of the stupid new presenter view thing.
Changes in behaviors will always impact people in weird and unusual ways.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure that's why it logged me out, so it could give me this new.
Oh yeah, so you could get the new version. That makes sense because I was logged out of everything yesterday. Yeah.
Okay, so putting the code in the chat now that I got it. There we go. Sorry.
There you go.
Okay, so that's today's code. Like I said, if you watch past episodes, you can get prior codes. The other thing I wanted to do today, which we're going to do periodically, is highlight a couple of new people with Sweet Internet points.
Sweet.
And how do you read? Is it Mikleo? I think like you're supposed to read that as Leetsky.
Michael.
Michael. Okay.
Michael. I don't know.
So yeah, and then Phil, and then Gary F. Are recent additions to Sweet Internet points. And we would like to see more, and so hopefully you'll go and find some of your own Sweet Internet points. And someday maybe we'll have gifts for the people with the most points.
Maybe even T-shirts. Who knows?
Maybe even T-shirts like the ones we're wearing. But we're not. we're not promising anything. All we know
No.
is we love to give out the internet points. And if you go to our Discord server periodically, I will feature, kind of the top 10 or top 20 of the people who are collecting them. Oh, and one thing I want to bear in mind or share, right, is that I actually particularly noticed this on this set of new sweet internet points, is there are dark horses. So when you go and fill out the form, if you say private for the name field, I won't mention you in any way. So so you can collect the internet points and not kind of share them with anybody if that's what you're interested. And in fact, we had somebody do that and kind of leap to the top of the pack, scaring their end dev quite a bit. So that is definitely an option. So this is not and you can kind of put in whatever you want for sharing the for your name. Obviously, if it's of questionable taste, I will not be sharing it live as well. And all right, so sometimes, so we're back to starting OpenShift cluster. Sometimes that's a lie, as in it's already started. So let's try.
Let's see.
And apparently it is not.
No.
So we'll have to wait a little bit longer. Do we have any fun, interesting questions?
So I'm going to screw up this name so bad, and I'm so sorry. Mir Sakawat Hassan has asked for more free ways to use OpenShift, right? So I mentioned okd.io, the OpenShift playgrounds. I forget the time limit on those, but there's various ways you can use OpenShift for a time box amount of time, and then CRC, which is the tool that you're using right now, which is
the first time I've actually ever seen it fail. To be clear.
Yeah, it's odd that libvirt failed. I think we're going to have some issues even with trying to bring this back up if libvirt is failing in the background. Like, can you run a PS, a UXF, WW, make sure it's still running?
Yeah. One thing in CRC's defense is that there is a update out there that I have not taken because usually I don't like to risk that immediately before a show.
Of course, but it could have fixed something.
It could have fixed something. Yeah.
I think I've already.
Sorry. So you wanted me to try?
Just get a PS and make sure that it's still running. However, UPS. Oh man, that was bad. However, you UPS.
I always stay on battery wise.
So yes, there's a link to CRC in the chat for everybody, and it enables you a few different ways to use OpenShift right there in your local environment, however you have it. And you can install it and use it through VS Code as well, through some wonderful extensions we have, which I need to open and get the name of real quick because I forget it. I think it's OpenShift Connector, but I could be wrong.
It's completely tanked.
libvirt?
No, CRC.
Oh man.
Ignore my passwords.
Oh gosh.
Well, as we've discussed before, I have bigger problems if you can get to the machine that.
Yeah.
Oh
true.
no! You know what? My link is bad. I think.
Oh.
Because it's the OAuth link. Yeah, there we go. It's better.
Okay. There we go.
I apparently I lied. Let's try cookies.
So here's the link for the. So it's CRC in place of Kubernetes. So Max CRC. So let's explain OpenShift, which is kind of high level real quick. So OpenShift takes Kubernetes, and then there's this thing called. This is the way I like to explain it, at least, because I'm a CNCF ambassador. The Cloud Native Computing Foundation has what they call trail map of things that you'll need to run, a productive, containerized orchestration environment. And OpenShift is Kubernetes plus some opinionated views of how to manage, operate, and scale clusters and maintain them and keep them stable. So adding all those features creates OpenShift, the entire solution, and all of it is open source upstream kind of deal. OpenShift brings it all together. The upstream of that, because we open source everything that we do here at Red Hat, the upstream of OpenShift is called OKD, which if you saw in chat earlier, the okd.io link, that will tell you like, what we're, potentially working on in the future kind of deal. I'm trying to think if I got any other props here. So yeah, like to give you an idea, like we look at the container landscape and the cloud native ecosystem landscape, and we build an actual operational Kubernetes distribution, which comes with logging, monitoring, and all the bells and whistles that you'll need to actually keep it going, including a service mesh capability, a serverless capability, or function as a service capability with Knative, and then some developer tools as well, and OC and ODO. So there's an entire ecosystem of tooling around OpenShift because it has all these things built on top of it. And a lot of that is instantiated by this thing called operators, which I'll share a link for real quick. You can get the ebook for free. It's an O'Reilly book talking all about operators and how to build them. And it's essentially, we had, I think it was last week, a show about what an operator is. It's just taking code that you would normally like do as part of a setup, an upgrade, or an install, and instantiating that as a declarative piece of code, and a CR can CRD, creates CR cluster resource, so a custom cluster resource, so that it can do those operational tasks to take that workload off of you, so you can go focus on some other things that are more difficult to.
Right, the whole SRE model
Right.
built
Yeah.
into the code base itself, so that you can kind of go and have all those maintenance scripts that you normally have. If there's a failure or whatever, you can kind of say, here's what to do in these scenarios. And so, and what I mean, at least for me, is that the experts are primarily building them for you. So, even, if you have to do one custom, that's good and everything else. But if you want, to run a production instance of Postgres, for example, Crunchy has a pretty good idea of how to do that well. And so using their operator gives you that love. This is actually one of the things that, when we talk about RHEL, for example, when you install an RPM, one of the nice things about that is it's configured in a way, let's say Apache, right? It's configured in a way that is ready for production. And the people who are deciding how to do that are the ones who maintain Apache. So they know Apache way better than most people. And I really like that same concept. That is what kind of operators are bringing to the table. And then if you are doing your own custom one, you can do that as well. One thing I wanted to add, speaking of service mesh, is my idea for the show, kind of not the one when right after the new year, but the one after that probably, is to take this setup and integrate service mesh so that we can do MTLS between the data, the web server and the database server, and show how easy it is to integrate that secure layer within OpenShift by essentially just checking a box. It's pretty cool. And then maybe we can do some routing with showing off some different versions of the Nextcloud instance. Like, we're using 20.02, but maybe 20.04 will have come out by then, and we can kind of show how we can shift traffic using Canary and that kind of stuff, which I think would be super cool. I would like some quick feedback. We saw somebody, I thought it was a Mike, just drop in. Max, sorry. That you're newish to containers, and so definitely let us know what you would like to talk about, because that's what this show's kind of targeting, right? Is like people who are new to containers. And to answer your question, is CRC in place of Kubernetes? So CRC is code ready containers, which is a kind of developer install of OpenShift. And OpenShift is a nice wrapper and best practices and what do you call it? Like intelligent defaults of the set of content that is in the Kubernetes world, come together into one, kind of easily installable application. So Kubernetes is actually, are some of those projects even strictly under Kubernetes, or are they under CNCF? But
both. Yeah.
Okay, so so there's actually this whole mess of projects that are around the ecosystem of Kubernetes, including Kubernetes itself, that are all carried under the CNCF, which is the Container Native I just blanked. Cloud Foundation, Container Native,
Cloud Native Computing
Cloud.
Foundation.
That's it. I was like I know it if I tried to write it, but I couldn't say it out loud. So there's a whole host of projects in that ecosystem, and you can install all of them independently, as basically they're open source, and you can go and check the boxes and install that. What OpenShift does is brings together what we believe is kind of a best practice guideline of like how to bring all those pieces together for kind of a base install, which is OpenShift itself. And then we also offer a bunch of the other things that are in that ecosystem, like the service mesh operator, for example, as optional things to add on to OpenShift if you're interested in doing this. So hopefully that answers Max's question.
Yeah. And we are like out of time essentially.
Yes,
right?
but
like
CRC
the overtime
is back.
overtime. Yes.
And so
it appears to be working.
I'm pretty sure it is. I was doing something stupid with the API URL. So we already saw how to do storage claims. So just for the sake of brevity, we would go through and add storage. A couple things I found were that you need to add this storage for the whole HTML directory. So if you think in normal RHEL land, what would be var www HTML, it's not that directory because if you go back and look at the PHP 7.4 container image, its root is just not the default one, which is kind of a legacy of Red Hat software collections. But it's in here somewhere. But we can easily find it out actually by going here. And what I think is really cool. Oh, we'd have to rebuild. So I can't show you. But basically the point is, I mean, I can, but we don't really have enough time.
Yeah.
So I would add storage. Got to add it for that root directory. And if we do the service mesh one, maybe I'll finish this stuff up. We have some packed content for the next 2 episodes, so I can't get to it immediately. But you would add storage for that kind of root directory, but then also a separate one for basically that root directory / data, because Nextcloud separates its code from your content. So Nextcloud, right, is a file server, so like Dropbox, say. So data is where all the files are, so you can keep those two pieces independent. So you can go and upgrade Nextcloud without affecting your data, which is a good thing, right? The other thing that is we're kind of leaving it as an exercise for the reader is if I was running this right now, I can, if you go to a Nextcloud install homepage, it basically says, okay, where is your database? And I can hard code that information in by looking at, and I think I'll be able to see it here, even though I don't have it in the other one. These environment variables are injected into the container for Nextcloud. And the config file should be using these injected environment variables by using getenv in PHP. But I couldn't find a way in that UI of the Nextcloud install to kind of say, no, don't have me hard code it. Let me give you the environment variables where you can get it from. So I had it hard coded, but then I can go back and I can configure the config.php. I mean, the entire source tree is actually coming from basically just a Nextcloud. I tart it and xz'd it to make it a bit smaller, but that's where the entire source tree is coming from. So I could just change the config.php in there to use getenv, to use the environment variables, which is what I should do, but I hadn't done that because I wanted to just show you it kind of working. And in general, right, what we've developed here is a dev version of the Nextcloud dealio, right? If you actually wanted to deploy this to production, I would recommend, where is my link? Do I have it here? So I thought I had the link, but there is a Nextcloud. Oh, let me just see if I can find it. Sorry, here it is. Nextcloud has a Docker actually has a how did I get there? Has a set of Docker deployments. So for example, for version 20, they have the Apache version, they have FPM with Alpine, they have FPM. This is the maintainers actually maintaining this. So if you actually wanted to deploy it in containers in production, I would probably at least start from these rather than the one we've been going through. We've been doing it as a learning exercise. However, there is a good one out there that I would recommend if you wanted to use it in like production. I'll just throw that link in the chat in case anybody else wants it. But then we'll wrap it up there for the show because we're already well over time.
Way over, yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate you tuning in. We'll learn more next week. Same bad time, same bad channel, as we say. See you soon.
Yes, it was an S2I image, Netherlands Hackem. And that's why it's in opt app root. And yeah, thanks everybody for coming. And we just keep talking.
See y'all. Thank you.